Okay, great. All right. Hi, everybody. It's great to be here. I'm Susan Renaud. I'm the Director of Special Projects with the Circular Economy Development Center. I am going to share my screen. Let me just make sure I get the right one really quickly. Let's see. Hang on. Let's see. All right. Does that look right to everybody?
Yep, looks good.
Okay, great. All right. Well, it's great to see all of you and to be a part of this. I know that several of you have probably seen a similar presentation before. And so I'll go through it for everybody. The presentation is relatively brief. And then I'll make sure that I leave plenty of time at the end just for questions and for discussion. But I'm grateful to be here. As I mentioned, I'm Susan Renaud. I'm the Director of Special Projects for the Circular Economy Development Center. And I'll refer to that from here on out as the CEDC, just because it's a little bit of a mouthful. And so first, I'm going to give a quick overview of the CEDC. Then I'll explain the Circular Transportation Network and how it works. I'll also share where we are with the the rollout of it. And then I want to give a little more information about an opportunity potentially to work together in collecting some plastic film. All right, here we go. So great. So to give a little more context about the CEDC, we were formed as a result of legislation in 2022 to develop circular economies in Colorado. We're administered by Circular Colorado, which is a local nonprofit, and we have a contract with the state to run the CEDC. Our funding comes from the C3 Enterprise Fund. And our purpose is to grow existing local end markets for materials, to create new end markets that don't currently exist in Colorado, and to address any infrastructure needs and transportation challenges to get those materials to end markets. And we're tasked with delivering 3 full circular economies in the state over the next 3.5 to 4 years. So this is the CEDC team. Our group consists of professionals with areas in a lot of different or expertise in a lot of different areas. We have backgrounds in business, waste diversion, product design, government, economic and business development, environmental health and safety, in a lot of different areas. And then in addition to our staff on the Front Range, we also have 3 satellite offices throughout the state. Those are located in Colorado Springs, Grand Junction, and Southwest Colorado. So the CEDC, it helps companies, municipalities, and stakeholders transform linear consumption models into circular economies. Our vision is to keep materials out of the landfill and keep them circulating at the highest value in our local economy. And to do that, we really try to act as a quarterback to identify and coordinate circular projects, bring partners together, and we provide a range of services and technical assistance as well. A lot of what we do is economic development, because so much of creating a circular economy really is an economic development. So we do things like from attracting manufacturers to Colorado. We try to pair people with funding assistance, assist with site selection, public-private partnerships. We really just try to plug everyone into their place in the loop. We address barriers also to collection and transportation logistics, which is a big hurdle in circular economies. And we also work to develop end markets. So we're really trying to get recycled content to local manufacturers that can turn the materials into new products here in Colorado. We've published a circular model guide. We're actually going to start working on an updated version here soon. And it shares a step-by-step kind of guide to our process. And I'm not going to go over it in detail here, but you can find more information on our website if you're curious to learn more. So we're currently working on about 8 projects. And the project that I'm about to share addresses regional transportation, and our other ones target more circularity around specific materials and developing end markets for those. So our first project is the Circular Transportation Network. This is essentially running milk runs to mountain and rural communities to collect recyclable materials that couldn't be collected otherwise. We pick materials up for free using trucks that are currently returning to the Front Range empty. And the intent is to address recycling challenges for business and municipalities with a lack of access to recycling and prohibitive transportation costs due to economies of scale. We can accept many different recyclable materials that are currently part of community recycling programs, as well as a few others. Two of the other ones that we can accept that are a little bit less traditional are plastic film and down-filled products like jackets and sleeping bags. We can pick up all of those materials from a site, or we can just pick up one or some materials. So for instance, a business or a municipal drop site that's already recycling other materials wanted to add plastic film to their offerings, we could pick up just that one material. The criteria for acceptable materials are listed here. We're not a MRF, so the materials need to come source separated and clean. It's also important to keep contamination below 5% because we just don't have a good way of separating it out. And we also can't get containers with hazardous material residues like chemicals or motor oil or pesticides. And then just to note too that for down-filled products, the criteria are different. And I'm not going to go into it here, but if you have some and you're interested in collecting that material, let me know and I'm happy to discuss it. So for pickup, materials need to be collected in gaylords, super sacks, or bales, and each one must be on a pallet for pickup. Each of our trucks will have a donkey forklift that can get the materials onto the truck, so you don't need to have a loading dock. And also, if people need help getting super sacks or pallets, definitely let us know because we do have a supply for those and we may be able to help you with that. So how are we doing this? This is a collaboration between the CEDC, so we're acting as the organizer, Front Range Transload, which is a facility in Pueblo with access to both truck and rail, and B. Kirkland Trucking Company. So the trucking company deploys trucks from the Front Range at regular intervals to locations throughout the state. And you can see some of the routes, the different routes depicted here in the different colors. So once they drop off their loads, they normally return empty to Pueblo. And so we saw this as an opportunity to use that empty space to backhaul materials to the transload facility. So the materials are taken to the Front Range Transload site in Pueblo. You can see it here. There's a commercial drop site actually that we're setting up for the community as well. We'll have a hoop house structure and then a warehouse. And those materials, they'll be aggregated, baled, and shipped from that location to local and regional end markets, primarily by rail. And for this model to work, the circular transportation network can't pay for materials. But on the upside, we also don't charge for the materials to be picked up. And something that I want to clarify that's important is that this really is not intended to pilfer customers from existing haulers. It's meant to capture material that wouldn't be diverted otherwise. So participation, we've done our best to make it as easy as possible. To sign up, you'll go to our website and fill out a form. There's no commitment. It's just to get you set up in our system. Next, you'd collect the materials. As I mentioned before, they need to be collected in gaylords, super sacks, or bales and put them on pallets. Once you've collected those materials, you'll submit a form. It is also on our website. And on that, we'll just ask what materials need to be picked up, their weight. This can be general, but it's just helpful in planning our routes. We'll ask for a couple of photos of the materials, and you can upload that from your phone. And we'll use those photos to verify the materials and just make sure that they meet the criteria. And when we see that they do, we'll work with you to schedule a pickup. And I just wanted to note that the return routes aren't static. They can change according to the requests that we receive. And we'll design the routes also to pick up the materials as they're requested. And we're still working, like trying to figure out kind of the threshold as to how far off of a major thoroughfare we can deviate to pick up material. And we can work that out on a case-by-case basis. So this was really designed to benefit rural and mountain communities in a few different ways. The network can allow businesses and municipalities to recycle that just couldn't do it otherwise. It provides opportunities to divert materials that may not be available to communities currently, such as film plastics or textiles with down. It creates economies of scale for small scale generators who would find transportation costs of hauling material prohibitive. And as a bonus, it may eventually reduce some of your trash hauling costs by reducing the volume of the waste that's going to the landfill. So the current status, we have about 16 sites signed up to participate so far. Excuse me. What we're finding is that it's taking them a little while to aggregate enough material to fill about 6 super sacks. We don't have a set minimum, but we're really hoping that sites can collect about 6 before we pick up. We're happy to report that we recently started picking up materials. The first one was in Crested Butte and then also in Steamboat. We've been doing a bunch of outreach to spread the word. Our satellite offices in Grand Junction, Pueblo, and Southwest Colorado, they've been really busy working within their regions to share information about the network as well, and are getting quite a bit of interest. We've seen an increase in interest over time just as the word gets out, and we're getting a lot of inquiries, so we anticipate more signups soon. A lot of the interest, it's been interesting, is in the film from the commercial sector. We're finding that a lot of businesses have quite a bit of film plastic that they've been landfilling, and they just don't have a good way of recycling the material. And then for the more traditional recyclable materials, we're finding that communities without recycling are interested, but they're struggling to start due to a lack of collection infrastructure locally. And also someone to kind of oversee the operation or some sort of a community partner just to make sure that it's sort of separated and not contaminated. So we're trying to find some creative ways to help them address those barriers. And it's a gap that we probably should have anticipated maybe a little bit more. It's been a little bit more of a factor than I think we had realized. And for this, I wanted to kind of mention this to all of you because we have an opportunity for plastic film recycling because we were awarded a grant through the Recycling Partnership to help communities in Colorado divert film and flexible plastics through the Circular Transportation Network. And so we're looking for communities and businesses that are interested in collecting film plastics from residents. As I mentioned before, there's a lot of interest in film collection from businesses, kind of on their back end. But this grant is really a little bit more geared toward front of house and just really helping the residents to collect that plastic film. This grant with the TRP provides funding for infrastructure, signage, and education. And then the Circular Transportation Network can transport that film for free to the end market. And we're aware that it's being collected in some supermarkets and retail stores already. And so we're not looking to replace that at all. But we are looking to provide additional collection points to anyone who may be interested in that and find a need within their community. And so we'd love to partner with any existing community drop-off sites or businesses, or if anyone else has creative ideas, we'd love to hear as well. So if you're interested, please feel free to reach out and let me know, or we can talk about it also just right now as we wrap this up. So thanks so much for your time. This is the end of the presentation, but I'd love to hear any questions or ideas you have. So I'll end the slideshow and stop sharing and I'll open it up for discussion. Great. Does anybody have any questions or anything they'd like to share?
Hi, it's Michelle Gazaric from EcoCycle. I raised my hand. I'm so excited for this because, like I said, for years I've been going to Western Colorado University and taking their styrofoam and their film back, especially on move-in day and move-out day
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
on the university. It's a huge mess. It's a huge problem. Um, and I just know from working at Charm, volunteering at Charm, contamination, 5% contamination is a really high threshold, and we spend a lot of time training people on what plastic films are acceptable and what aren't, to the point that we have a big board that has all the examples of what you can and cannot put in. And I think one of our number one challenges. What are you doing to help that education? And how can we help?
That's a great question. Thank you. Oh, yeah, contamination is tricky, and this is in its infancy too. So I think we're going to be finding out more and more about that and kind of what we need. Right now, the partners that we have, everything is kind of back of house. There's nothing that's front of house from the community yet. And so we have a form. Our partner is Driven Plastics, if you all are familiar with them. They're located in Pueblo and they use the film plastics to go into paving to improve I think it's, what is, gosh.
Elasticity.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the paving. And so their threshold for contamination, we definitely have to be really careful with it.
Yeah.
But it may not be quite as it's not as tricky, I think, working with some of the back of house because everybody sort of knows what they have and knows what's going into it. So we give that specification sheet to all of our partners. They're careful to see what's going into it. And they kind of know also kind of what that feedstock is. But you're absolutely right. When it goes into more of like a community, front facing collection, we're going to need to have great signage. We're also really looking for folks that are able to have kind of an organization or people who can sort through it a little bit and kind of look for some of that contamination as well. But I think it'll be a little bit of a learning curve. And I know the Recycling Partnership has a lot of resources as well because they've been at this for a while too. So it'll be a work in progress. Daniela?
Yeah, I have a bunch of questions. And just for the clarification, as I understand it, the film is being transported to Pueblo, but Pueblo is not the final destination. It's put on the train and it goes somewhere. My assumption it goes out of the state. So
It actually stays, the film stays in Pueblo. I'm sorry to cut you off, but it's actually the local end market is in Pueblo.
Right. So to me, transportation of this film from a steamboat to Pueblo, that's a long way. And also the film is very light. And I think the obstacle is more than probably maybe the Steamboat Springs doesn't know that there is a location in Pueblo that takes plastic. Like my county doesn't know there is a location in Pueblo that takes the plastic film. We are here under the impression that there is no demand for this product anywhere reachable. So rather than to connect looking through some extra partners, we know there is a demand in there. Organizations like in my county YMCA, which is the multimillionaire company operation, it's very easy for them to have their own truck to ship the plastic or use some commercial haulers because you transporting lots of air. It's light, it's easy. But like in my county and probably Steamboat, we do have a problem with lots of other things that we would need to help with logistically. And your goal is to help with the logistics. So our problem, it's not the plastic wrap. Our problem is we don't have a connections where to ship it. Otherwise, we figure this way out too. So you're looking for the highest economic value from your operation. But to me, it seems like that economic cycle is not up to the scale. We're not taking out of the county the most the biggest burden. You're taking the one that you pick up the phone call about the plastic because that people don't know what to do with it. But the burden it's some other material. Like my country would be maybe the cardboard, clamshells, and something else probably.
Yeah, no, I think I understand where you're coming from. It's true. I mean, I think the materials that we've selected are materials that we know that we can have end markets for. And it's also, I think we set this up initially with kind of more traditional, recyclable materials. For that, just to see kind of what was missing and what we might be able to collect from people. And I understand, I know that cardboard is really challenging, and a lot of materials are. And we can take those materials as well. We just need to be really careful not to, if there are existing contracts in place with haulers, we can't collect from places where existing contracts are in place. And so it's a learning experience. We're all kind of trying to work that out. And And the plastic film is one area, though, where I think a lot of people don't have existing contracts in place, and there isn't an end market for them in many other, recycling programs. And so that's, I think, why it's been so popular and why people have been interested in it is because it's something that hasn't had an outlet otherwise. Is that?
Maybe down in Fort Collins is a little bit different with those contracts, but here people do not contract haulers for specific material. People contract haulers for number of the bins, and it's up to we are free to decide if we want to recycle or not. If we want to have two different haulers in front of my home, I'm not limited as a person or as an organization to, to contract only with one hauler. It's my choice, and it's really that limitation number of the bins. If I can put the stuff into the bin, a recycling bin, I will throw it into the trash. If there is no recycling facility, then except more cardboard, the cardboard goes into the trash. So there is an excessive amount of cardboard that goes to the trash because there is no place to put it. And no one will pay for more expensive contract with the hauler for recycling because that's expensive. So we do need to get rid of the excess cardboard, which if we have a single stream, it goes all mixed up. If we separate it, have a dual stream, we don't have a hauler in the county. That means we will need the help to ship the cardboard out. So that would be the solution for the cardboard, to separate the cardboard from that single stream, means from that hauler. And there is no provision in the contract from the people side, from the organization side, that would prevent to that organization or nonprofit to contract with another entity, whether it's state or nonprofit or for-profit organization, to collect the same commodity, but do it in a single stream, separate from the single stream bundle, right? We do the same thing with the cans, aluminum cans. Some of the entities here picking up the cans from that single stream and taking it where they make a little bit of money out of it. Mm-hmm. And it's not a violation of any contract. So I do think that it should be the same way all across the board. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Yeah, maybe we can talk more about that, Daniela. But, okay, thank you. All right, Rachel.
I have also multiple questions. Hopefully the first two are quick and easy. You mentioned that you were looking at how far off the main route makes financial sense to travel. Are you looking at any sort of transfer station model where maybe a further out community could coordinate further in? Okay. Mm-hmm. And then you also mentioned that you have pallets and some of the super sacks. Is that a reuse system? Are you getting those pallets and super sacks from places that have already used them?
Yes, we are. There are a couple of locations in Pueblo that actually have them, and so they're willing to let us use them. Yeah, there's TR Toppers in Pueblo. They have a ton of super sacks, and it's all the crushed candy like that goes into ice cream and things like that. So they have more than they need, and so they're kindly letting us have some of those super sacks. So then when people need them, we can go and pick up and then swap out sacks and let them have some of these empty ones.
So is that like from time to time, one of the routes actually has your stuff going on an outbound route to deliver pallets and sacks, or is it a separate?
Yep, it's the same one. Yeah, we're able to coordinate it so that those will go onto the truck on the outbound route, and then they'll just drop them off before they pick up.
Okay, and my last question, which is probably the longest question. My brain can't wrap around how this is penciling out. If you are not charging for transportation back, but you're also not able to charge for the materials to sell them, maybe that's a whole lot longer conversation. I'm fascinated by how is this all reliant on grant funding, or is there eventually going to be potentially either a cost or producer responsibility funding or something?
We're still working it out, and part of that is the proof of concept, really, is just kind of trying to see how this will work. We have a really amazing spreadsheet that's tracking all of this, and those costs. And the trucks are going out, they're coming back empty anyway. But there is obviously some additional cost that's incurred from that. And so the question is to see whether the commodity values for the materials that are picked up and sent to end markets are able to cover that cost of transportation. So it'll be interesting to see as we get into this more, just kind of how that pencils. And we also anticipate that it could be useful in sharing that information, just as EPR kind of comes online too. So yeah. Does anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, Susan, have other states reached out to you with questions about how this is working? I don't know, like just thinking like the Wyoming, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota that are more rural and would need help in that area?
So far, just one. Someone from Nebraska reached out
Okay,
and was interested because they're struggling to move materials. And so they were just kind of curious to learn a little bit more about this.
right. Okay, interesting. Thank you.
I'll
Mhm.
chime in, Susan, that I have former colleagues in Indiana, a heavily rural state with minimal waste and recycling infrastructure that has been keeping tabs on this program, and is super interested in it.
Oh, that's good to know. Thanks. Feel free to put them in touch if they have questions or want to have a conversation. We'd be happy to discuss it with them too.
Okay, sounds good.
Susan, this is Michelle again. If it's going to Pueblo and going into asphalt, are we going to have an excess of plastic film compared to the volume that the Pueblo Asphalt Company can accept? And second part of the question, can they also take things that trucks can't take, like thicker number 2 plastic bags, like dog food bags or mulch bags? And can they also take the liners that go in cereal and cracker boxes?
That's a good question. So I think the first part, as far as is whether there's excess or not, they need a lot. I just had a conversation with them recently, and so they do. I guess it depends how much we can generate and drum up, right? So it'd probably be a good problem to have. I know that they need a lot. They need more than we're able to provide at this point. But we're also looking into other local end markets for the material too. Just in the instance that yeah, we are able to get more than they are able to take. As far as the other materials, I'd be happy to share their flyer with what they're able to take. I didn't see anything that was thicker. I think it's fairly similar to the Trex program, probably. There might be a little more wiggle room. They can take some agricultural tarps. And so I imagine that those are a little bit thicker. But it didn't mention anything about kind of like, I think you mentioned feed bags or kind of dog food bags or things like that. But if you're curious to learn more, if you put your info in the chat, I'm happy to send you the spec list for you. And then was there a third part to your question that I was missing?
No, that was it. Thanks.
Okay, yeah, sure. Oh, yeah, Liz.
Thank you so much, Susan. I'm so excited about the work you guys are doing at CEDC. I had a question come my way about the requirements that CEDC has in terms of who you can partnership. In particular, the person I was talking to seemed to think that the CEDC, the transportation network, can only pick up from non-profit drop-off locations. And that is not how I understood the system to work. So are there any parameters? Are there any restrictions about where the transportation network can stop to pick up material?
No, not really. The only thing that's tricky is that it's really set up for to help people who wouldn't be able to pay for the transportation otherwise. And so we haven't really partnered as much with groups that would be able to pay for the transportation otherwise, if that makes sense. It's like I mentioned, we're trying to walk that line of just being really careful not to step on any haulers' toes or other transportation, like other folks' toes. It's meant is something that, that's just to kind of fill that niche. So I'd say it's kind of a case by case basis. And so if anyone has questions or they're concerned or they want to participate and they're not sure if they're eligible, just to reach out and then we can discuss it and kind of figure out those parameters. But no, I mean, we're picking up from some businesses. We've been working with some of the ski resorts as well, that just aren't able to transport the film plastics otherwise. So I think it can be fairly broad. We just have to be careful to kind of keep those lines clear, if that makes sense.
So to clarify, make sure I'm understanding correctly, in the example of, say, an entity like Kroger or King Soopers and Target that are currently contracted with a hauler to take materials from their sites to a reclamation facility, that is a scenario where the CTN it cannot interfere because that would be interfering in an existing contract. But if there were, let's say, 5 or 6 businesses, small retailers in a resort town or on the Western Slope, that none of those retailers alone could afford to hire somebody to take away their plastic, but they all agreed to collect it together. And the reason I say agreed to collect it together is, in that scenario, a business that can't afford to hire a hauler to take this away, or it doesn't make economic sense because it's cheaper to just put it in their roll-off, their trash container. If they got into a co-op of sorts with other businesses, then they might have enough material that y'all could come on a regular basis to pick that up at no cost. So that would be the commercial setting that would work. And then another another example would be, let's say it's a drop-off center, a established drop-off center, and it's run by, whether it's run by the county or a government entity or it's run by a private entity. If that entity is currently contracted to haul a specific material, then that's something CTN is not going to be able to do. But if that space is established and they want to start a new collection stream, then CTN could come in and service that, regardless of whether that drop-off was for-profit or government run.
Yes.
Am I spitting that back out accurate?
Yes, no, that's great. Yeah, thank you, Liz. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And I know a couple of, I don't want to interfere. If other people have questions, by all means, please jump in. I'm terrible about asking 8 million questions. I do know that textiles are an ever-growing concern. And there are a few companies like US Again that are moving textiles from place to place, but by and large, as I understand it, there's a lot more potential than there are established contracts in the textile recovery. Is that something CEDC is actively working on? Is that a material stream that could be established, much like the plastic film? If there were a facility that said, oh, we'll start collecting textiles in super sacks, is that a material that the CTN would be able to pick up? Do you have a destination for it?
It's potentially, yeah. It's just a matter of the end markets, really, and making sure that we can collect enough volume, and that there's enough interest in different areas of the state for that. Textiles is definitely a topic of conversation, and we've discussed that internally for sure. So we're not currently accepting it. We're really kind of trying to get this off the ground with the materials that we have. But I wouldn't rule it out in the future. I think that is a possibility. And so, yeah, like I think the end market is the key, right? Is just kind of figuring out like where those go and just making sure that that's viable.
Yeah.
Susan, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rachel.
Do you have criteria on the end markets? Are you following like the producer responsibility, responsible end markets, or um, what are the criteria that you're looking at to determine whether or not something is actually being recycled and whether that end market is legitimate? I mean, textiles is a huge question, but we also know that a lot of the end markets is shipping overseas where it probably gets landfilled or yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. We've been working with Centennial Recycling to look at end markets and make sure that they're as local and close by as possible. So it's really like we've been kind of looking at that right now. I know we're going to start diving into that more though as we aggregate more material and just making sure that those are, as close and responsible as possible. So yeah, but our goal is not to be sending things overseas. It's really to keep them in the country at least. Close. Yeah,
Right.
Michelle.
Susan, hypothetically, what if I was another asphalt company in Gunnison and I want to hop on this bandwagon and get some of this plastic film for my company? Is there a mechanism right now that I could contact you and get on this end market user or be an end market?
That's a really good question. People are welcome to reach out to us. So if people are interested in doing that and becoming an end market, then yes, that's just a series of conversations to have. But yes, we're open. Yeah, Brian.
Brian Loma, Cut the Plastic EMS. Sorry, I didn't get to say hi earlier. Michelle, I really appreciated that question. I want to highlight that if you want to get on that bandwagon, you should reach out to Direct Polymers directly because it's not just the plastic bag film that they use. They actually have a proprietary co-polymer binding agent that they get from a major patented chemical industry. And so it's not just about adding the plastic film directly in, but it's a whole process. I am sure, though, I can guarantee you that Direct Polymers is trying to grow the communities that they are expanding this product in. And I see that Liz now just put it in there. That yes, it is proprietary technology, but they want this to spread everywhere. So they definitely would be excited for that. I was in a partial meeting. I had a call come in. So I caught you say something about textiles and it triggered me. So I was wondering if there was some textile recycling going on, if you could just briefly repeat it or send me a link.
Yeah, we don't have any end markets for it yet, but it's something that we're really looking into. It's definitely a topic of interest, but we don't have any active projects in it at the moment.
Okay. The reason I asked is that I was looking. So I'm the hazardous materials and waste diversion advocate for Green Latinos. And I was researching something in the Colorado Green Circular Economy business pages where textiles was a target. So I was really hoping that you had something that you're like, yeah, we're partnered with so-and-so and we got a pilot project going on. I also print clothing. And so I have a box full of art that was damaged while it printed. And so t-shirts that can't be sold. And I want to get them to the right place. So.
Absolutely. As soon as I have more information or we have a project going, we'll let you know. Because yeah, it's a big one. That's a huge material stream.
Yeah, and Brian, I have this down as a snack and share idea, so I'm going to do some research and see if we can get some more presenters on this. Because it sounds like textiles, all facets of it, we need to hear more on. So there we go. Yeah, 2 thumbs up. So look at you, going crazy over there. All right, go ahead, Rachel. I think you're next.
So you may have,
Oh.
no, I was just trying to be on it, so I didn't leave my hand up. Susan, you may have already said this, but I was wondering if you could take a step back and help us understand. I know CEDC has done a lot of research on reuse and businesses, or not reuse, on recycling and businesses and what potentials are, but And obviously the end markets are an important piece of it, but can you help us understand how CEDC has targeted the materials that they have? And is it a market or a stream, which the chicken or the egg, what's driving which?
I think it's a little bit of both, but we did a gap analysis. I don't know if you've seen that. It's on our website. And really kind of trying to look at the different materials and the waste streams in Colorado and where there is potential for viable circularity in the state. So we've really kind of been using that as a guideline and looking at that. And then we get a lot of inquiries from different people, that are interested in CEDC and in circularity. I think there are a lot of different factors, and we're actually kind of doing some strategic planning here coming up pretty soon too, kind of looking at that as well, and just kind of where we go from here, just as, taking all of those different factors into play. So sorry, I don't have a better answer at the moment, but I think the gap analysis really has been kind of one of those documents that's really kind of helped us kind of guide us forward with those materials too. And those are textiles, I think clean wood, tires, there are a few different materials that really stood out as being important. Yes. Michelle.
Oh, thanks, Susan. So two quick questions. Where does the down fabric or down filled materials go? And second of all, would you entertain keeping a list of boutique upcyclers? Like there is a lady in Boulder that wants those t-shirts because she makes dog toys and she can only make them out of t-shirts for her clients in Boulder. And so there's many of these little boutique upcyclers. And could you be a clearinghouse for that boutique upcycle mini market or mini circularity market within our state?
That's really interesting. That's the first I've heard of just kind of the boutique, upcyclers. I think that's really interesting. I'd have to take that back to the team and talk to them about it. I think that's a really interesting idea though. Yeah, no, thanks for putting that on my radar. Yeah, I'll look into that. And then I'm sorry, the first part of your question.
Where do the down fabric and sleeping bags go?
Yep. So the down fabric, we're partnering. Well, we've been working with Tersus Solutions. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They have a waterless CO2 cleaning process for textiles. And they're located here in Denver. And they have that process for down items as well. So they actually are the ones that are taking the garments, they're, and the materials, they're breaking them apart. They're looking for a solution to recycle the actual the fabrics. But with the down, they can clean it and then they can sell it so that it can be reused in new items as well.
Thanks.
Hi, Daniela.
I got a few more questions. You said you're operating based on the grants. How long those grants are going to last? Was it just the one grant or is it a repetitive grant?
So, sure.
I got second question really quick. You partner with one transportation network, and is there any limitation why not to partner with more transportation networks? They have some different routes.
So this is all based off of one grant that we received. This was actually a forward grant before it was kind of brought together as a C3 grant. The funding that was received was actually to go toward setting up this whole network and just any of the infrastructure that was needed for it. So it's setting up the actual site in Pueblo that can receive the materials, that can bale them, all of that. But the partners already have a trucking fleet. They already are sending trucks out all over the state. And then, bringing them back. And so it's not reliant on grant funding. The idea is that we kind of put this together as we say, kind of a business in a box, and work in conjunction with these partners. And we hand it off at the end of that. And then it should be self-sustaining from there. And then they'll carry that baton. So that's how it works. So that it's not it shouldn't end as a result of grant funding, because it's really what's funded is just the infrastructure to get the ball rolling and to get this going. And then as far as working with other partners, it's we've really worked this out, with these partners, and I don't know what the future of it is, but it's not a model that's proprietary per se. This is just something that we're working kind of proof of concept and to get this launched. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks. Yeah, Brian.
So I think I remember when you guys were announced at the Recycle Colorado convention this past summer. And I love, like, Neil Noble dropped in here, a textile company in Detroit that's taking used materials and reprocessing them. I see Rachel drop something else off as well. But the main point and the focus of your system is to be on a rail line and to be at a location where milk run efforts and other such collection can be congregated so as to have enough of a single stream to justify its transport to a facility. And obviously rail is more efficient than over the road.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think about 4 times. So yeah, no, thanks for mentioning that. You're right. Yeah, the rail is key, and that's what we're really fortunate is that our partners, the Front Range Transload, they do have the ability to do both because they are on a rail spur, a BNSF rail spur.
Perfect. I got to bounce for another meeting, folks, but I look forward to the video alley and someday getting to meet you in person, Susan.
Thank you. Yeah, likewise. Thanks for joining us. Great, Daniela.
Is there anyone else besides that direct polymers that takes the plastic route in Colorado?
So we're actually looking into that right now. There are other companies that use that, and it's a question of whether they have the technology to pelletize it and to use it in other ways. So that's some research that we're doing. But right now, Driven Plastics is the group that we're working with. But direct polymers, it's confusing because it's Driven Plastics and direct polymers, but direct polymers also can take that plastic film as well. So we have two. It's just we kind of are looking to see kind of what other end markets there may be locally as well.
And they all do just the pellets out of it. So it means that they ship the pellets to someone else.
No, so Driven Plastics that's in Pueblo, they actually use it locally. It's pretty cool. Their warehouse is only like a mile or two from this transload site. And they are the ones that use it as an additive to asphalt paving. So it's very local. And where their paving projects are, that's a whole other question. They're doing a lot within Colorado though. But that's a local end market that's very close by. And then direct polymers is in Denver. And if they pelletize it, then they do sell it. So sorry, go ahead.
No, my question was how much we are depending on demand from the other states for these pellets and stuff like that. So if other states will take the pellets from Colorado and for producing their products, if they get filled up, which they can't take more because there is no need for their products, then they will cut the Colorado, right? Because we are with the pellet productions, it's just a middle member of the chain. So how much we depending on these demand supplies out of state.
Yep, and we're looking at that circularity too, and local end markets who could take those pellets and then use them here locally for other purposes. So yeah, that's the big goal though, is to have that full circularity for sure.
You mentioned that their paving projects are all over. And I'm curious because when we were looking at the tire bill, the waste tire bill last year, one of our hopes was that maybe we could get some of those waste tires put into asphalt. And it was my understanding that there was question about whether or not that was a feasible idea, at least on highways. And so I'm curious, is this the asphalt that Driven Plastics is creating, is it like only okay for parking lots, or can they do roads or even highways? And if that's
Mhm.
beyond your knowledge base, that's totally okay.
Oh, that's okay. My understanding is that no, it is roads. I know that they've been working on a project in Pueblo with, I think, the city and county of Pueblo. They've been working on a paving project, but my understanding is that there are road projects that are all over. I can find out more though if you want more information. Yeah, Hayden.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. We've been meeting with Driven Plastics over the past year. So they take the plastic film, actually the plastic boat wrap from the Dillon and Frisco marinas for some of their feedstock, and that's where we first got connected because we were kind of looking, town of Breckenridge as far as our plastic film market, and and it was a local end market. So yeah, we've actually been speaking with them to see if there's any road projects up here that they can potentially work with either our town streets department or the county and CDOT on any road projects, because we definitely want to see how their product and their asphalt um, is, how it handles up here in the high elevation and extreme environments. So yeah, we've been talking with them. I don't think we have anything on the books yet, but it's definitely been of high interest for us to, like you were saying, Susan, bring that circularity, right? If we can tell that story of capturing the plastic film up here in our community and then putting it back into the roads and getting potentially a higher quality asphalt product out of it, due to their parameters that they work within. That would be a cool story because, as you guys know, up here in the high country, our roads get just destroyed. So yeah, that's something that we're looking into, but I'll keep everyone posted if there's any updates.
Awesome. Thanks, Hayden.
Okay,
Um,
I raise my hand as a stop. That's my stopping. Liz and I do need to hop off, and so I just wanted to wrap things up a little bit. Susan, if you can put your email address and maybe some information on CEDC in the chat, and then I'll be sure to also send out this recording link, and then Susan's information on CEDC and the Circular Transportation Network or Transload Network, so that you all can get access to it, look it up a little bit more, have some more questions that you're going to email Susan, and we can all get connected, it sounds like. But me and Susan were like, I don't know, are people going to be interested in this? Do they want to learn more? And it sounds like there's a lot here. So I'm super excited that you all were here and we're just berating Susan with questions. I'm sure she was loving this. She's got so many new ideas.
No, this is great. Thank you so much. Those were really thoughtful questions, and I really do appreciate it. And if you have any other thoughts or concerns or questions, please do reach out. I'd love to hear from you.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Susan, and thank you everyone for being here. Enjoy the rest of your sunny, snowy, I don't know, cold day wherever you are at and whatever the weather is. Cool. We'll see you guys hopefully in February.